Tonight, Saturday, February 1st, a sight no one in America thought we'd see again. The loss of another space shuttle, the loss of 7 astronauts. Tonight, a massive search for debris spanning several states and hundreds of miles.
I'm Bob Barnard at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where the investigation into this morning's horrible loss of the orbiter Columbia is just beginning. We'll have the very latest on the theories and the latest from NASA in a live report.
And among the crew, a native son, astronaut David Brown. Tonight, we hear from those who knew the Arlington man well. Fox 5 News at 10 starts now.
This is Fox 5 News at 10.
A mission with high hopes, high expectations.
We've got our space legs and up and running.
Meets disaster high above the Earth.
Columbia's lost. There are no survivors.
Far below, the search for comfort, for answers.
This is indeed a tragic day for the NASA family, for the families of the astronauts.
While the final words from Columbia reach a grieving nation.
And Columbia, Houston, we see your tire pressure messages, and we did not copy your last.
Roger.
A very long and very hard day for all Americans. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Tracy Neal.
And I'm Laura Evans. Right now, investigators are trying to figure out what went horribly wrong with the Space Shuttle Columbia.
The grim remains of that horrible event, hard to look at tonight. That is the helmet from one of the fallen astronauts found in a field in East Texas.
Over the border in Louisiana, another sad scene as the remains of what is believed to be one of the 7 astronauts is taken away by hearse.
As America mourns, the president orders all federal flags to be lowered to half staff. Meantime, memorial services are now being held here at home and across the country to remember the 7 brave men and women who died today.
From the D.C. area to Florida to Texas, our network of reporters has this still developing story covered for you tonight. Let's begin in Cape Canaveral with Bob Barnard, who starts off our live team coverage tonight. Bob?
What a gut-wrenching day it's been here at the Kennedy Space Center. A stunning loss that reminds the men and women who work here of the Challenger explosion 17 years ago. After a moment of silence, NASA officials ordered all flight data be preserved for the investigation and all but ruled out the possibility that terrorists brought down the space shuttle. It's an image that will now become part of our history. Streaking across the Texas sky 200,000 feet up at 12,500 miles per hour, the orbiter Columbia disintegrates before the eyes of perhaps thousands, some with video cameras rolling, capturing the sudden and violent deaths of 7 astronauts, the destruction of NASA's oldest space shuttle just before 9 o'clock this morning.
This is indeed a tragic day for the NASA family, for the families of the astronauts who flew on STS-107, and likewise tragic for the nation.
For most of us, we're just now learning their names. Rick Husband, William McCool, Michael Anderson, David Brown, Kalpana Chawla, Laurel Clark, and Ilan Ramon, the first Israeli in space. While the astronauts were awakened in space today, their families were here at the Kennedy Space Center to witness the landing at the end of a 16-day science mission. Instead, the families received a phone call from President Bush and consoling words from the NASA administrator.
We have assured them that we will begin the process immediately to recover their loved ones and understand the cause of this tragedy.
To understand what happened today, why spacecraft debris and human remains were showered onto parts of Texas and Louisiana, NASA officials will look back at the launch of Columbia 16 days ago, when small pieces of foam insulation were seen tearing apart from the external fuel tank and striking the shuttle's left wing. It was a problem with that wing that first alarmed NASA officials moments before they lost contact with the shuttle astronauts.
We can't say that a debris impact on the front of the wing, a tile, is any reason to conclude that we lost the vehicle.
But the question remains, was there unseen damage to the wing that couldn't withstand the extreme heat of this morning's re-entry into Earth's atmosphere?
We must find what happened and fix it and move on.
NASA has already started forming an independent panel of experts to investigate today's disaster, for the space agency only equaled by the Challenger explosion 17 years and 4 days ago.
The loss of this valiant crew is something we will never be able to get over, and certainly the families of all of them, we have assured we will do everything we can possibly do to guarantee that they work their way through this horrific tragedy.
One of the leaders of NASA's space program say the 7 astronauts who were lost today knew the risks they were taking, but that nobody ever wanted to see this happen. As for the immediate future of the shuttle program, NASA officials say it's hard to say until they know what happened today. Laura.
All right, Bob. Tough day. Thank you so much. President Bush is authorizing the Federal Emergency Management Agency to spend whatever's necessary to collect the shuttle debris. Tracy?
And Laura, that debris from the Space Shuttle Columbia has now been strewn over a 500-square-mile area, a stretch that reaches from Texas into Louisiana, and tonight it's creating a dangerous situation for anyone on the ground. Weather radar picked up the shuttle. The red image you see there, that's the shuttle breaking apart. The bright dots to its side, charred debris falling to Earth. On the ground, a trail of twisted metal that goes from eastern Texas into western Louisiana. People in Louisiana say they saw and felt that explosion. The shuttle debris was discovered in a grassy area in Toledo Bend, Louisiana. To Dallas we go now, where onlookers gaze over yellow police tape, staring at pieces of bent, charred metal scattered on a busy highway. Fox's James Rose reports from Nacogdoches.
Tonight, the eyes of the world are on Texas. The focal point, at least for now, is on Nacogdoches. It's like a mecca of sorts. Hundreds of people are coming to pay their last respects. Hundreds of people come to downtown Nacogdoches to see the scattered remains of the Space Shuttle Columbia.
All morning.
What goes through your mind when you see that?
It's just such a tragic event, that happened, and we're waiting to see if NASA will come and pick it up, and we like all the excitement in this quiet little town.
It's easy to lose sight of what actually happened up there. All these people, they sit around kind of laughing and joking around, but, 7 people died, a couple thousand feet above our head, and it's just, I don't know, it's pretty sad to think about.
One of the largest pieces lies in the bank parking lot, surrounded by National Guardsmen and state police. Everyone has their own reasons for coming.
Been down to Houston to see the shuttle and the mock-ups and the tiles and all. I'd rather see them that way all the time rather than like that.
It's real sad what happened, but, it's just something that's historical, is, come and see what it looks like, what the debris looks like.
This is a rather large example of some of the debris they're finding out here. This is just one of some 500 items in this county alone. And they'll very likely be finding these things for the next weeks, months, and perhaps even years to come. In Nacogdoches, Texas, James Rose, Fox 5 News.
Well, James, as they do, officials are warning residents not to touch the debris, not to even go close to it because it may be hazardous. Some 27 people went to the hospital today after coming into contact with pieces of the shuttle. Laura?
And Tracy, tonight people are remembering the fallen heroes of today's shuttle accident at makeshift memorials. They're remembering them with notes, flowers, and candles. Our team coverage continues now with Fox 5's Will Thomas. He's live in Houston, home of Mission Control. Will?
Laura, good evening to you. Tonight we are high above the city on the rooftop of our sister station in the heart of Houston. I can tell you, no matter where you go, whether it was on the plane flying into Houston, in the terminal just a couple of hours ago, as you can imagine, the talk is all about the Space Shuttle Columbia. And just about everyone you actually speak to one-on-one has some story, someone they know who heard the loud boom in Nacogdoches, Texas, where much of the debris fell, or someone who actually came upon some of the debris. Tonight in Houston, those 7 astronauts are being remembered.
A few miles, the computer is...
Think you're glued to the TV? In Houston, home of the space program, the scenes on television are a sad reminder of the Challenger accident.
It gave me flashbacks from being back in high school, because that's the age that I was. And I remember walking down the hall and hearing the same thing. So yeah, there are echoes of that same experience.
It's hauntingly familiar for 1986 with a Challenger, just something that you just hope would never happen again. But it really brought back memories of what happened in '86.
Outside the Johnson Space Center, a memorial of flowers continues to grow. For some, this will be a day they'll read about in history class. For so many others, this first day of February will always be looked upon with deep sorrow.
But I don't think the space program is going to be halted or anything like that at all. I think they'll continue to go forward.
The first Indian-born woman in space is especially mourned in Houston. Kalpana Chawla was not only a homeland heroine, she became a celebrated astronaut who's remembered on this day by Houston's large Indian population, the second largest in the country.
She was almost the first Indian woman to be setting foot in space, so we were really very proud about that.
In fact, we wanted to find out from her how she felt when she went up on space for the first time, and we never got a chance to, feel how she felt when she was up there.
In the coming days, we are sure to see what's expected to be a series of very formal memorials for those astronauts. As you can imagine, they are loved in this town. It is the home of the space program. Tonight, we're going to leave Houston, head to Nacogdoches, Texas, where much of the investigation is now centered. And tomorrow night, we'll bring you more live coverage from Texas. For now, I'm Will Thomas in Houston. Laura, back to you in Washington.
All right, Will, we'll look forward to that tomorrow. Thank you. Tracy?
One of the 7 astronauts killed today was one of our own, a doctor from Arlington, Virginia. David Brown was a Navy pilot and a physician. Today, his parents talked about their son and his passion for space travel. Fox 5's Maureen Ume live right now at Arlington National Cemetery. Maureen.
Well, Tracy, for a lot of us, seeing those pictures is really the first time we're putting faces to the names of these brave and courageous astronauts who lost their life. Captain David Brown, he was born here in Arlington, and it is likely here in Arlington at the National Cemetery that his life and the lives of the 6 other crew members of Space Shuttle Columbia will be memorialized, much in the same way as the lives of the 7 crew members of Space Shuttle Challenger memorialized here with a marker. A lot of you will remember Challenger exploded in 1986, killing all 7 people on board. Captain Brown may also be buried here. It's a little premature to talk about that, but the chances are he might be buried here as well, as are 2 astronauts from Space Shuttle Challenger. We did go down to Washington, Virginia today to talk to Captain Brown's parents. They say their son did know the dangers of the job, but that he died doing what he loved. His mother says that is some comfort to her during this very difficult time.
We are a nation of explorers. That's why this great nation has come to what it is. And the space program will go on too, for that reason.
Dorothy Brown obviously very proud of her son, as is Captain Brown's father, Paul. He is particularly proud of the experiments his son was doing in outer space.
They research osteoporosis, prostate cancer moving to the bone, flames, how to put them out with mist, help the fire departments, even perfume, but odors. That could go back to detecting drugs, I guess.
Obviously very meaningful work. With the results will never be known at this point. We did talk to people in Washington, Virginia, neighbors who knew the Browns. Some of them did not know the family very well, but they all obviously sharing in the loss and mourning the loss of David Brown and the other astronauts aboard Space Shuttle Columbia. We are live at Arlington National Cemetery. Maureen Ume, Fox 5 News.
Thanks so much, Maureen. They were conducting some 80 experiments up there. David Brown's parents say he got the bug to be an astronaut during his time at the Navy's flight program.
And from space just yesterday, Brown said he and the crew were, quote, looking forward to seeing all the people back on Earth that we miss and love so much. And there were lots of people here on Earth who loved and knew David Brown. Tonight, the city of Arlington is also dealing with the death. Fox 5's Beth Parker continues our team coverage now.
Dr. David Brown's journey into space began here on North Jefferson Street in Arlington. The son of a county judge, he grew up watching the Apollo and Gemini missions and thought being an astronaut was, quote, the coolest thing you could do.
Beautiful, Mike, really is.
At Arlington's Yorktown High School, he played football and participated in gymnastics. He also loved to juggle, even worked as an acrobat in a circus during college. Now, before heading up into space, David Brown called the principal here at Yorktown High School and told him that he holds his alma mater in such high regard that he wanted to take a memento from the school up into space with him. Administrators gave him a Yorktown Patriots flag and were told he had it with him when tragedy struck.
What impressed me about him at the time, to be honest with you, is that someone of such stature and such accomplishment in his life was also such a regular, pleasant, gracious person to speak with.
Gracious despite his accomplishments, a degree from William and Mary, a degree from Eastern Virginia Medical College. In 1986, he was the Navy Operational Flight Surgeon of the Year. As a mission specialist on Columbia, he conducted science experiments. For the Dean of Brown's Medical School, this loss is a reminder.
It makes you think about dreams. It makes you think about frailty of life. You know, we're all here one day, and then sometimes we're not here. And I think it also says that whatever we want to accomplish in life, we ought to get on and do it.
Back at Yorktown, the Patriot wrestling team was getting on with things today. Despite losing a man who didn't just call himself a Patriot, he was one. In Arlington, Beth Parker, Fox 5 News.
Yorktown High School has actually seen its share of tragedy. David Charlebois, the pilot of the plane that crashed into the Pentagon on September 11th, he was a Yorktown alum, and so was Minnesota Senator Paul Wellstone, who died recently in a plane crash.
Our coverage of the Space Shuttle tragedy continues throughout our newscast tonight.
A series of live reports still ahead.
This is what's become an all-too-familiar reminder of the tragedy. Flags flying at half-staff across the district tonight. Coming up, we'll hear how some local residents are coping with today's tragedy. Wisdom? One of the people on board today's shuttle was from India. Coming up, we'll have reaction from the embassy and a family member. Paul?
Wisdom, the future of space travel on the minds of officials and scientists tonight. I'm Paul Wagner at the Goddard Space Flight Center. That story later in the newscast.
President Bush rushed back to the White House from Camp David today. He was notified by officials that NASA had lost contact with the shuttle. Mr. Bush said that the entire nation grieves with the families of the crew members lost today, and he praised the astronauts for their courage and for their daring.
The crew of the Shuttle Columbia did not return safely to Earth, yet we can pray that all are safely home. May God bless the grieving families. And may God continue to bless America.
In his message today, the president vowed that the space program will continue.
Indian-born astronaut Kalpana Chawla was a great source of national pride in India. Columbia was just her second mission in space. Locally, several years ago, the Indian Embassy welcomed Chawla as an honored guest. Tonight, as Fox 5's Wisdom Martin found out, people at the embassy are mourning the death of their countrywoman and their hero. Wisdom's there live now and joins us with reaction. Wisdom?
Well, it was a sad day here at the Indian Embassy where they had a lot of sadness about this terrible tragedy, but it was even worse for Kalpana Chawla's family. Now, her brother, Girish Chawla, woke up this morning with a phone call from his brother telling him about the tragedy that killed his sister. Now, after being bombarded with phone calls, he is now on his way to be with his family during this time of sadness.
I thought today will be a very exciting day that I will meet her, and I'll talk with her after she will come back, and we'll talk for hours and hours.
At the age of 41, Kalpana Chawla had captured the hopes of the Indian people. She was the first Indian astronaut in space. She was considered a role model in her country.
She represented hope, aspiration. She represented technology. So this is a great tragedy. A great tragedy for the United States and a great loss for India.
Indian Ambassador Lilith Minsing says she was a symbol of achievement. 2 weeks ago, Chawla was on the cover of India Today, India's most popular news magazine.
We are in mourning with the United States on this great tragedy.
News of the Columbia Space Shuttle accident that killed Chawla has brought sadness to the people of India as they mourn the death of their hero. There is also sadness at the University of Colorado at Boulder. And that's where Chawla got her doctorate degree in aerospace engineering in 1984. C.Y. Chow was her advisor in college.
This was the picture. She came back from the first flight. Then she gave me this and some big pictures.
Chawla was selected by NASA in 1994. She was an FAA-certified flight instructor who had logged more than 376 hours in space. To the people of India, she may be gone, but her accomplishments are not forgotten. Now, the president of India is also the head of their space research. He sent a letter to the president of the United States today saying that he was deeply saddened by today's tragedy. Back to you.
All right, Wisdom, and it's worth noting that India has been launching satellites for years and is even preparing for a lunar orbit this decade.
Laura, also among the 7 crew members, the first Israeli astronaut. 48-year-old Ilan Ramon was a colonel in the Israeli Air Force. He worked as a payload specialist on board the shuttle. His death comes as a huge shock for Israeli citizens. Fox 5's Matt Ackland picks up our team coverage tonight, live from the Israeli Embassy in Northwest. Matt.
It has been a sad day here at the Israeli Embassy. As you can see, the flag has been lowered to half-staff. We are told back in Israel, today is a day of mourning for a national treasure. Here in Washington, take a look. People have left flowers, candles, even a special note.
When Colonel Ilan Ramon took off from Cape Canaveral aboard the Space Shuttle Columbia a little over 2 weeks ago, the entire nation of Israel cheered.
We have booster ignition.
This may have seemed just like another shuttle mission in the U.S., but for the Israelis, Colonel Ramon's first flight into space was so much more.
We were all so proud of Eli Ramon and the whole team.
It's very personal. It's a very personal loss for everybody. I'm very upset.
In Washington, Vicki Pedrick and her son, just 2 of many Americans stopping by the Israeli embassy to offer their condolences.
We wanted to come over here to the Israeli embassy to let them know how sad we were for their loss.
Colonel Ramon was more than just an astronaut in Israel. Everyone knew and loved him. Many in Israel called him a superhero. Children idolized him there as children here idolize sports stars.
Space is inspiring.
Colonel Ramon leaves behind a wife and 4 children. He is the son of a Holocaust survivor, and although he was lost in today's tragedy, his country says his legacy won't soon be forgotten.
He made the country very proud that we finally sent someone into space.
With so much recent violence in Israel, the spokesperson here at the embassy told me today this was finally something for Israelis to be happy about. But with today's accident, that has all changed. At the Israeli Embassy in Washington, Matt Ackland, Fox 5 News.
Matt, thank you. The Israeli ambassador left Washington this afternoon. He's in Houston, Texas tonight, meeting with the Ramon family. He expects to meet with NASA officials to get the latest on their investigation into the cause of this terrible crash.
As our coverage of the disaster aboard the Space Shuttle Columbia continues tonight, a look at how people here in our area are paying their respects to the fallen astronauts. We'll show you what's going on throughout the metro region tonight. And scientists here in our area were involved in Columbia's mission tonight. We are live at the Goddard Space Flight Center, where the Israeli astronaut was based just before this mission began. That story and more still ahead. It is, of course, a somber night across the district tonight as many people continue to realize the real impact of today's tragedy. People are still talking tonight about what happened to the Space Shuttle Columbia at restaurants, inside churches, and as they share this evening with friends and loved ones. Our team coverage continues now with Fox 5's Steve Chenevy live in Northwest with how the district is coping with the tragedy. Steve?
Well, Laura, some people are turning to their faith, some to loved ones. Some people are simply turning away, not wanting to face another American tragedy. A tough task tonight with word of the tragedy and signs of mourning evident throughout the city.
The flags on many of Washington's landmarks fly at half-staff. Outside the White House, tourists pause for an extra minute. Across the district, the Space Shuttle tragedy has become the talk of the town.
We were just talking about it at dinner time, and all of us were remorseful about it, all of us.
Certainly our hearts are to the families of the astronauts who passed away, and hope we can recover from this.
At the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Northeast, the message tonight was preparing for a final encounter with God.
We just hope that through this tragedy, we'll not only learn something, but other people will be supported and strengthened and prepared for the future.
As churchgoers prayed for the families of the astronauts inside, outside the questions continue, the reality of the situation finally sinking in for some people.
You never think it's really going to occur until it actually does occur, and then you just
you just know how dangerous the whole situation is. It just doesn't seem that long ago that it happened the first time, and here it is again. Just terrible.
I really flashed back to Challenger and remembered being a little kid and seeing that happening, and how sad and surprised and shocked that I was. Kind of feel like those sorts of things don't happen.
But a nation realized that these things do happen, which for some people here in Washington is simply too much to think about right now.
I think we're just at a very vulnerable point at this time in this country, and I for one, am just a little on edge about things as they happen, and that's why I'm out tonight, so I don't have to handle it. It's a little too much.
A number of people may feel it's a little too much right now, but the consensus among those we did talk to was that we as a region and as a country will recover and move on. Although one man did tell me the hardest part for him today was trying to explain what happened to his young son. Live in Northwest, Steve Sheneby, Fox 5 News. Laura, back to you.
All right, Steve, thank you. Flags in the district will remain at half-staff throughout the weekend.
We've talked about all those scientific experiments. Well, local scientists had a hand in part of the Shuttle Columbia's mission tonight at the Goddard Flight Center. Questions about the future of space travel. A live report still to come.
And it's apparently already hitting eBay. Wreckage from the space shuttle up for sale. We'll tell you what that's all about straight ahead.
There are still 3 astronauts in space right now, 2 Americans, 1 Russian. But according to NASA, those astronauts on board the International Space Station are not stranded. They can still go up and pick those astronauts up, even though the shuttle fleet may be grounded for a while. They can do it by launching a Russian rocket attached to the space station. But the crew has enough supplies, we're told, to last through the end of June. Meantime, flags are flying at half-staff at the Goddard Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland, lowered to show respect for Columbia's astronauts. You see, scientists there coordinated some of the experiments they used during their 16-day mission. And this tragedy raises some real questions tonight about the future of the space program. Our team coverage continues. With more on the future, Fox 5's Paul Wagner live now at the Goddard Space Center with more. Paul.
Well, Tracy, the Goddard Space Flight Center here in Greenbelt is known as the Center of Excellence for scientific research in the fields of space and earth sciences. Earlier today, we talked with Virginia Senator George Allen. He serves on the Science, Technology, and Space Subcommittee in the Senate. And he told us that although his thoughts are now with the families of the 7 astronauts, he says we need to find out what happened, but then move on.
I think it's very important for our future. It's important for our national security, for our military. It's important for advancements in medicine. It's important for advancements in air travel. And for our competitiveness as a country, we cannot get behind and lose some of these top quality engineers. Obviously, we can learn from this because we need to keep moving forward, obviously, and keep improving and learning from this tragedy.
According to NASA, the international crew of 7 worked around the clock in alternating shifts, carrying out experiments in the areas of astronaut health and safety, advanced technology development in Earth and space sciences. Now, we've also gotten some reaction today from John Pike. He is one of NASA's critics. He's with the Federation of American Scientists, and he feels that the quality of NASA's safety right now is not very high.
They were laying off experienced people, that they didn't have enough money to do the sort of safety and quality assurance inspections that were needed. And frankly, I think that NASA was overly optimistic about how reliable the shuttle was.
We also know that one of the scientists monitoring the flight here at the Goddard Space Flight Center was an Israeli scientist, a scientist who had survived the Holocaust, who had given astronaut Alain Ramon a memento to take with him on the shuttle. That scientist had been here at the Space Flight Center monitoring the flight. Tracy.
A lot of touching stories tonight. Thanks so much, Paul. Senator Mike DeWine of Ohio, who helps decide on NASA funding, says it's really too early to determine what role today's disaster will have on NASA's budget.
As we reported earlier, a large portion of the shuttle's debris landed in Louisiana. Twisted metal has been found in and around 3 parishes near the Texas-Louisiana border. Fox's Claudia Coffey is live at a hospital in Leesville where they're preparing for possible injuries. Claudia?
They certainly are preparing, but the good news is that so far there are no injuries. No injuries have been reported here. As you mentioned, most of the debris has been found in 3 parishes in western Louisiana, and just about everyone has a story about what they saw. In the skies over western Louisiana, the remains of Columbia could be seen streaking over bayou country. Roland Coate heard a noise that he thought came from nearby Fort Polk.
And I had my hand on the door, and it was just the most tremendous explosion you could imagine. It actually shook my hand off the door. The house shook, and there were a series of smaller rolling explosions. The dogs were scared. He came in the house.
So far, there are 6 confirmed pieces of Columbia debris across western Louisiana. However, sheriff's departments are receiving hundreds of unconfirmed reports of scattered parts from southern Sabine Parish, Caddo, and central Vernon Parish.
It's everywhere. So I think the heaviest probably fell in the on the Texas-Louisiana border area.
Most of the debris is reachable only by helicopter. Louisiana National Guardsmen have been dispatched to help seal off areas where parts have been recovered.
They have been flying a swath or a debris field, as they call it, from southwest Louisiana to east Texas as far as Nacogdoches, just trying to find anything that they can that could be remains from the space shuttle.
There are no reports of people being sickened by the debris. NASA officials say Columbia's fuel-stained debris could be hazardous to humans. At Byrd Medical Center in Leesville, doctors are ready with radiation equipment just in case. Officials have suspended the search for the night. While the nation mourns, western Louisiana is getting ready for another painful day of recovery.
A terrible tragedy for everybody, for the families, for those who were lost, for the country.
And officials will resume their search tomorrow morning. The National Guard is warning people because of a debris cloud overhead that more debris could fall throughout the night. In Leesville, Louisiana, Claudia Coffey, Fox News. Now back to you.
All right, Claudia, thank you. A 60-mile region of airspace is now off limits in Louisiana. That's because of the large trail of debris there.
This tragedy today is affecting so many people. The sports world is mourning as well without saying a single word. We'll explain that when we come back. Not long after the shuttle accident this morning, wreckage was said to be up for sale on eBay. Well, those auctions have now been pulled, but there is still brisk bidding going on eBay when it comes to items related to the Shuttle Columbia. More than 700 items are now for sale, including photos, commemorative coins, and patches. Laura?
Tracy, the sporting community is also recognizing the loss tonight. Fox 5's Lou Holder joins us now with more on many moments of silence in remembrance. Lou?
Yeah, that's right, Laura. Similar to what religious leaders do during tragedy when they immediately have masses and services to honor victims, sporting officials wasted no time incorporating acts of respect and honor at events all over this nation. Tonight, the Wizards, along with the entire NBA, had moments of silence before their games. They did the same at college hoop games earlier today at noon in South Bend, Indiana. Somber fans remember the Columbia victims before the Georgetown Notre Dame contest. And in Lincoln, Nebraska, the color guard, the fans, and the U.S. flag, all reminders of how deep the events of today have touched all Americans and how important it is to lean on the strength of others for comfort in these tragic times. Now, in a day that has this whole nation in mourning, the best pro basketball player that the nation has ever seen shows us that sports is indeed vital to the healing process. Without an injured Jerry Stackhouse and Larry Hughes, Michael Jordan gives the MCI fans a much-needed diversion, putting on a clinic to remember against New Orleans. 45 points, a Wizard career high. Wiz win 109-104 over the Hornets. One other score to pass along in that Georgetown Notre Dame game. The Hoyas fall in a double overtime heartbreaker, 93-92. That's your quick look at sports on this tragic day. Laura, back to you.
All right, Lou, thanks. And it really is amazing to see how Americans across the country are dealing with this tragedy today. Thank you.
Our coverage of the Columbia shuttle disaster continues.
A place that celebrates America's space odyssey became a spot today where people could go to understand and cope with the enormous loss. Steve?
And I'm Steve Rudin. We're going to take a look at our forecast and the extended Fox 5-day outlook coming up in just a moment.
Tourists at the Smithsonian's Air and Space Museum were shocked to learn the news of the shuttle disaster today. They gathered to watch this historic, tragic event unfold before them. Fox 5's Bill Prasad spent the day there.
Faces of concern. Museum visitors ignore exhibits and focus on a live picture of mission control.
A space shuttle contingency has been declared.
I think it's terrible. I mean, just seeing it on the news kind of gave me chills.
Behind them, a 15-foot model that now could be a monument. There were 4 shuttle vehicles in operation. The one at this museum is named Columbia. Plaques featuring information surround the model. In one paragraph, the word routine. That's how NASA had hoped to describe the shuttle missions. But it's not how these visitors describe the 7-person Columbia crew.
It just gives a new meaning of heroes. That's what they really are.
Outside the museum, just one more solemn moment that will be followed by others. Inside, an arena built to celebrate mankind's conquest of space. But a TV monitor displays a reminder of how frail a human is when thrust into the void. Randall Wong remembers January 28, 1986. Wong is from Hawaii. So was Challenger astronaut Ellison Onizuka.
I saw the Challenger go down when it actually went down. It looked the same type of things where all the fragments were falling off.
Faces of despair now reaching for words of faith as they understand that the number of lost faces is about to grow.
The Columbia shuttle was nicknamed the Old Gray Lady because it was the oldest shuttle still in use.
We do want to take a look at our weather tonight, and we've seen the video over and over again, the clear blue skies over Texas.
In fact, Mission Control members there had been celebrating good weather not only today upon reentry, but also when the shuttle launched back on the 16th. Steve?
Yeah, you know, Tracy and Laura, last night a lot of meteorologists in Dallas, they were saying, be out there this morning at 8:03 Central Time, and you'll see a clear shot of the space shuttle as it crosses through northern Texas. You can see the satellite loop here over the past 12 hours from 9 o'clock this morning, just about when the time that the event took place. I'll get this all out, and now you'll see how clouds are beginning to roll into the area just to the north. In the meantime, we're looking at 40 degrees overcast skies at National Airport, winds out of the north at 8 miles per hour, 38 for Dulles, 39 Martinsburg, 39 degrees in Winchester. This is what's going to happen over the next 24 hours or so. High pressure just to the southwest of us. It's going to move to the south of us. It's going to shift our wind directions more out of the southwest, and by Monday, we're actually going to see temperatures in the low 50s and even a bit warmer for the day on Tuesday. So our forecast shapes up like this. Tonight, a chilly night once again, 35 degrees. Winds out of the northwest just around 8 to 12 miles per hour. Then for tomorrow, 46 degrees for a daytime high. That's actually 3 degrees above average. We'll see mostly cloudy skies with winds, as mentioned, out of the north at just around 8 to 12. Here's the extended outlook. Mild temperatures on Monday and Tuesday with highs. Look at that in the low 50s. And then a cold front passes through Wednesday morning, and that's going to drop our temperatures back to around 40 degrees, 37 degrees on Thursday.
Okay. All right. Thanks so much, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. And when we return, a touching tribute to the men and women aboard the Space Shuttle Columbia. We'll be right back. It has been a tragic day in U.S. space travel as the Space Shuttle Columbia disintegrated, broke into pieces in the air over Texas today.
It has been a very rough day, and family members we're hearing over and over again are telling us how passionate everyone was, all 7 of them, about space travel, about their career. So we leave you tonight with a look back at the 7 men and women who lost their lives today, but will always be remembered. Stay safe. Good night.
This is a crew coming out of their crew quarters as a unit on the 3rd floor of the operations and checkout building.
I feel blessed to have an extended duration space flight from the standpoint of just having more opportunities to absorb the whole experience.
We'll be working on several different types of experiments while we're up there.
As an astronaut, you just climb right into it and you're right in the middle of it.
And if I do my job well, then their job should be just that much easier.
It's a great feeling to be part of the team. But in the end, the benefits are really had by all.
Space is inspiring. And whenever you talk about space, everybody, not only kids, even us, are thrilled.
And our astronauts coming out now, Commander Rick Husband, payload specialist Ilan Ramon, pilot William McCool, and mission specialist Michael Anderson, David Brown, Laurel Clark, and Colt Machapa. We have booster ignition and liftoff of Space Shuttle Columbia with a multitude of national and international space research experiments.
So we kind of cover the broad spectrum that you can cover, and we'll be up here for 16 days working around the clock.
The funnest part is definitely swimming through the air. It's just incredible.
This is a very risky endeavor, pushing back the frontiers in outer space.
And Columbia, Houston, we see your tire pressure messages, and we did not copy your last.
Roger.
Things were going so well and turned out so badly.
At 9 o'clock this morning, Mission Control in Houston lost contact with our Space Shuttle Columbia.
And as we've seen it coming across, the shuttle started breaking up.
There was a very loud, like an explosion, except that it was continuous.
It shook the house, and it just disintegrated.
The same creator who names the stars also knows the names of the 7 souls we mourn today. The crew of the Shuttle Columbia did not return safely to Earth, yet we can pray that all are safely home.